Coming up next on SportsCenter, Major League Baseball was forced to play their hand against Pete Rose in court today, and the deck appears stacked against the Reds manager. Ricky didn't lose the number of the Oakland Coliseum tonight. He made his debut back home. Surprise division leaders continued road swings tonight. Could the birds fly even higher than an angel? Would the Bucks stop here against the Cubs once again? We'll also have the word on the status of three big names. Will Terry Holland leave? Will Chris Everett play? Can Larry Bird fly? We'll take off up next on SportsCenter. Baseball's all-time hits leader is a revered American hero. In Cincinnati, he has a street named in his honor. But as proceedings began today in a Hamilton County court, it seems evident that Pete Rose might not get his way after all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of the SportsCenter. Along with Dan Patrick, I'm Eric Clemons. And it was Pete Rose's day, but it didn't seem to go very well.
It was. It was supposed to be Pete Rose's day in court. It turned out to be a day he'd like to forget. While the Cincinnati manager was in Atlanta preparing for tonight's game with the Braves, Rose's attorneys were preparing to block an upcoming hearing with Commissioner Bart Giamatti. They say the commissioner already considers Rose guilty. So forced to put up or shut up the methods used to gather their gambling evidence, the baseball investigators not only displayed a loaded gun, but a smoking one. Bob Lee has more.
John Dowd named names and described evidence he says proves Pete Rose bet on the Reds and Major League Baseball.
There are 9 witnesses. In one way or another, give information about Pete Rose betting on baseball or the Reds.
Commissioner Giamatti's investigator took the hearing through the so-called Pete Rose betting sheets. The New York Times reports the original slips contain Rose's fingerprints. He claims the sheets are forgeries, but Dowd has not received the FBI fingerprint analysis.
Are you interested in obtaining that information?
Yes, I think it would resolve any and all questions, one way or another. If we're after the truth, that's what we ought to do.
Fairness and truth are what Rose's attorneys say they have not received from the commissioner.
I submit to Your Honor that we are not here to determine this proceeding at this time whether or not Pete Rose bet on baseball. That is not the issue. The issue is for Your Honor to determine whether he's entitled to a fair hearing before an impartial decision maker.
Former Watergate counsel Sam Dash, retained by Rose's side, assailed the procedures of baseball's probe.
No accused that I know of in this country has ever asked to prove his own innocence. This is contrary to the American concept of justice. I think it's unfair.
Central to Rose's case is this letter, drafted by Dowd, signed by Giamatti, vouching for the candor of witness Ron Peters to the federal judge about to sentence him. Evidence of prejudgment, say Rose attorneys. Dowd defends Giamatti's integrity.
I don't know how many times the commissioner has said from day one, everything you do is going to Mr. Rose. I'm not making up my mind until I hear this whole case. Pete Rose is one of the greatest ball players this game has ever seen. We're going to give him every last ounce of effort. And, Your Honor, as an attorney and as a witness, I represent to you that they've always been my dealings with Commissioner Giamatti.
And testified Dowd, his report gave Rose's side a roadmap of baseball's case, more than attorneys ordinarily could expect.
Do I like it? No. There isn't a day that I haven't felt enormous sadness about this matter. But I have to be honest, and I have to produce for the commissioner my honest recitation and my honest assessment.
Tomorrow, Dowd is cross-examined by Rose's counsel. I'm Bob Lee, ESPN.
The Hamilton County courtroom resembled a scene from a Perry Mason murder mystery, jammed with spectators and media. To many, it is a mystery. Is Pete Rose being treated fairly by baseball? Is he really guilty of the gambling charges made against him? It was Cincinnati's biggest court hearing in years, and Charlie Steiner was there to record an historic day that will forever be remembered.
It was a stifling hot day here in Cincinnati, a day that reminded you of the old movie Inherit the Wind with Frederick March and Spencer Tracy. It was appallingly hot inside the courtroom. The only difference between that movie and today's activity, that old box microphone with WGN wasn't there. Instead, 12 mini-cams were here to televise the events live. It was a day in which, at least for a little while, baseball was on the defensive when Sam Dash, the Watergate special prosecuting attorney, took to the defense for Pete Rose, alleging that baseball's investigation of Pete Rose was unfair. But this afternoon, John Dowd, who conducted the investigation, pretty well defended himself and that investigation. Jim Drucker is joining us now. He's a New York sports attorney. He's been watching the festivities. Tomorrow morning, when the defense, Pete Rose's side, gets to cross-examine John Dowd, what do you expect that they're going to try and hammer at?
Charlie, I expect tomorrow that they'll hammer at Dowd was not only not fair and unbiased, but it was very subjective, and that he, quote, had it in for Pete Rose, something which, of course, Dowd vehemently disagrees. And today in testimony, although it did come out that there were 9 witnesses that were saying that Pete Rose, in fact, bet on baseball games, Dowd made the point of volunteering that there were also 9 witnesses that they interviewed that said Pete did not bet on those games.
So now, where does Judge Nadell go from here? What are his options as we look ahead?
Well, to postpone Monday's hearing in New York, Judge Nadell must find that holding the hearing itself will do Pete Rose irreparable harm. I just haven't seen it yet. Haven't seen it. One reason, where's the irreparable harm? You can measure it all in dollars. If Pete Rose isn't a manager, pay him his salary. So the timing is wrong. The hearing can come, but it should come much later.
We'll be back in Cincinnati tomorrow morning. Let's go back now to SportsCenter and Dan Patrick.
All right, Charlie, and Charlie's day will start at 10 o'clock Friday morning when baseball investigator John Dowd will be cross-examined by Rose's attorneys. ESPN will continue its live coverage of the court proceedings throughout the day with the full report on SportsCenter at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. As I mentioned, Pete Rose was in Atlanta tonight preparing for tonight's game with the Atlanta Braves, and Pete feeling like the loneliest man in the world. Well, he had a smile there, but when he sees the camera, get rid of the smile. Pete wasn't talking, but the baseball world was.
I think he's a great sports hero. He was a great player, and he's a fine manager. I can't comment on the gambling because I don't know. But I do know this. Knowing Bart Giamatti as I do, he will be fair and he'll be compassionate. Now, if Pete's done wrong, I think Pete's the kind of guy, or should be the first guy to stand up and say, hey, I admit it, I was wrong.
It's a very sad situation, not only for Pete Rose, but for all of Major League Baseball and for me in particular. I think one of the problems we have to understand here is that I believe that the commissioner should be the one to decide this case. I think the hearing should go on. I think after the case is decided, then if you want to go to court, okay. But I think only a baseball person can understand the ramifications of what can happen if you do bet on baseball games.
Well, obviously, those of us that know him and have been around him hope for the best, but at least from what we can tell at this particular point, things are not very bright.
As they said about Joe Jackson, say it ain't so, Pete, say it ain't so. I mean, it's so evident every time you walk into a locker room, the rules right there on the board. And it's not something you can plead ignorance to.
I would give him a long-term suspension. I would see that there was supervised, explicit treatment, but I wouldn't suspend him for life because America is too fouled up.
Hall of Fame.
Sports are warped in this society in their importance, and people actually believe that he is a significant social character when he has shown that he has very little character.
While his future as Reds manager is still in question, Pete Rose's election to the Hall of Fame appears to be safe, believe it or not. He will be eligible for induction in 1992, and the man who heads up the group that votes on that honor says it will take a lot more of gambling to keep Pete Rose out of Cooperstown.
The baseball writers that I've spoken to around the country all feel that unless it turns out that Pete Rose bet on a ball game against the Reds, that he threw a ball game, that what he contributed on the field will outweigh anything that had to do with betting on baseball.
Jack Lang went on to say Rose will be inducted on the first ballot, even if he's suspended or banned from the game for gambling charges, which really doesn't fit in with Joe Jackson. 70 years ago, he was banned from the game and never got a chance to be inducted into Cooperstown. He's got the third highest batting average of all time, so they're making a rule for Pete, but not for shoeless Joe Jackson.
And McLean, of course, was banned for even associating with people who are involved in gambling, so I guess different set of rules for the all-time hit leader. We'll have to wait and see. We go from the courtrooms to the playing field up next. The Birds gave Jim Abbott a rough time in Anaheim. Don Mattingly brought his big bat in against Chicago.
And Ricky was back, but did he make an impact in Oakland tonight? We'll let you know. We'll let you see when we come back after this.
SportsCenter is brought to you by Bud Light. Everything else is just a light.
Nature's light, nourishing golden fields of barley, as only nature can, ensures the clean, fresh taste that makes Bud Light the one light that outshines them all.
It came out of the east like the rising summer sun, and hot as the sun it burned. A sail, a heat-seeking summer sail on the hottest machines on the road or in the dirt. Ninjas from $29.99. Hundreds off motocrossers. The Kawasaki summer sail. It's too hot to last too long.
So, are you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Dad was afraid I'd find a starving artist up here.
Oh, Dad was worried.
Okay. I admit, I was a bit worried when my little sister took off on her own.
I'm not so little anymore.
Here, let me get that.
No way. Mine.
American Express, huh? I'm gonna stop worrying about you.
Making you feel like a million. To become a member, look for this display and take one.
Presenting the newest idea in lighting and the oldest idea. The new Coleman electronic ignition lantern and the torch. Both are easy to carry and easy to adjust. But the Coleman lantern is also easy to light without matches. You turn it on just by turning a knob, while the torch depends on a somewhat less reliable ignition system. The new Coleman electronic ignition lantern, the best idea in lighting since the Dark Ages.
Ricky Henderson, acquired in the 3-for-1 deal with the Yankees yesterday, arrived in Oakland to don an athletics uniform for the first time since 1984 tonight. The West-leading A's faced a Blue Jay team that is getting hot, having won 5 of their last 6 coming in. And right now we're in extra innings, tied at 2. We're in the bottom of the 12th. Henderson has a hit in his debut. He also scored a run and has a fine catch in the top of the 12th inning. Now, who orchestrated the Henderson deal? Well, if you can believe it, outspoken and involved Yankees owner George Steinbrenner told Larry King tonight he had little to do with it.
I told our new baseball vice president, Sid Thrift, who I have great confidence in, I said, you in Dallas, make the moves you want to make. I'll support you. The only thing I want is I want back in the championship soon, and I want you to know that you have my complete blessing to do what you want to do. But I would like to know just ahead of the newspapers, and that's exactly what I told.
Last year at this time, the Orioles were the standing joke of baseball. This year, Baltimore is earning standing O's. Riding a 6-game winning streak and a 6-game lead in the East, they headed into Anaheim for a battle of the wings. It was the Birds against the Angels. Jim Abbott on the mound looking for his 7th win of the season. He ran into trouble early. Top of the first, Bob Melvin drills it back to the box. Cal Ripken scores. Mickey Tettleton will come plate worth 3-0 O's. Look at the replay. Abbott just can't make the glove switch fast enough to make the stop. Move to the 4th, 4-0 Baltimore, and things got worse. It's gone. Mike Devereaux. And Jim Abbott was gone as well. 5-0 Birds, but California strikes back. Dick Schofield against Mark Williamson, and that will bring in Shilly Davis. The Orioles lead down to 5-4 in the 6th. Now, tied at 5, and Jim Traber off Willie Frazier, and it's gone. Orioles lead at 6-5 and hold on to win it by that same final 6-5. The Orioles picking up their 7th consecutive win, and the rookie Olsen picks up his 11th save of the season. Now, the best offense is a good defense. Baltimore's glove work is worth a standing O. At this time last year, the Orioles committed 47 errors. This year, they've been guilty of just 30 miscues.
Last night, the Texas Rangers pounded Roger Clemens to end an 8-game losing skid at Fenway Park. Tonight, much of the same as Ranger bats stayed red hot against Mike Smithson of the Red Sox. Let's go to it. Rubber game of the 3-game set, top of the 4th. Rangers up 2-zip, and Mike Smithson delivers a fat one to Scott Fletcher, takes it high off the monster in left. Steve Buechele and Cecil Espy will come around to score. Before you knew it, the Rangers had a 4-0 lead, and in came Bob Stanley. First batter, Ruben Sierra. Well, that's a base hit through the hole into left. Fletcher will score, and it was Rangers 5-0. Very next batter, as Fletcher had to leave the game, he slightly hurt himself on that play. Next batter, Julio Franco chopped one into the hole in left field, scoring Rafael Palmeiro, 6-zip. Kevin Brown got some good defensive help on the night. Rick Leach moves over, and he robs Mike Greenwell with a fine running catch, bangs into the padding out there. Greenwell's face tells the story. I guess it does. Texas all over Boston tonight, 9-1. Kevin Brown notched his 5th complete game, tops among American League rookies. Boston has dropped 3 of their last 4. Now, the Brewers used late heroics to stave off a sweep at the hands of the Royals. Top of the second, no score. Teddy Higuera on the mound. Mike McFarland chopped the slow roller to second. That allows Bo Jackson to score from third, 1-0 KC. Bottom of the ninth, 2-0 Royals. Glenn Bragg's on second, and Rob Deere deep to center field, way back and just over the wall. Game-tying homer. It ends a 20-inning scoreless streak for Kansas City. Bottom of the 10th, same score. Bases loaded. The Royals with a 5-man infield. Greg Brock, the dribbler to second. Frank White can't handle it. To second for one. They need the double play. They don't get it. And the Brewers, 3-2 winners in 10 innings. Chuck Krim got the victory with 1 inning of relief. Starter Teddy Higuera still unbeaten in 10 career starts against the Royals, but he's had 5 straight no decisions this year.
When New York acquired pitchers Greg Cadaret and Eric Plunk from the A's on Wednesday, 2 Yankee pitchers knew their days were numbered. Today we found out just who. 30-year-old Rich Dotson was given his unconditional release by the club. Clay Parker was put on the disabled list. And after surrendering 20 runs and 31 hits to Chicago the past 2 nights, manager Dallas Green was looking for someone who wasn't armed and dangerous to himself, but to the opposition. And that person looked to be Jimmy Jones. He was cruising along. In the 5th inning, the Yankees were leading 6-2, but make it 6-5. Darryl Boston, it is gone. A 3-run homer. Top of the 7th, the newly acquired Greg Cadaret. He had retired 5 in a row, gave up a double to Dave Gallagher. And then Steve Lyons lays down the bunt. Bob Guerin makes the throw. And it ties the game at 6-all as Gallagher scores 2 outs later. Cadaret, the pickoff throw. Lyons goes to second. The red-eye flight from Oakland, no doubt, catching up to Cadaret. Lyons on second. Cadaret delivers, and so does Greg Walker. Lyons will score, making it 7-6 White Sox. Bottom of the 7th, Mattingly. He had already homered once before. It's gone again. Number 151 of his career, 10th on the season. Some bad back, huh? Tied at 7. Same inning, 2 on, 2 out. Don Paul pitching. And Tom Brookins appalled at the pitch, and he rips it. Millhall scores. Dave Gallagher throws it away. Jesse Barfield scores. Yanks win by the final of 10-7. Ken Phelps, he had a pinch hit 2-run homer in the game. He leads the American League with 8 pinch hit RBIs. The Twins were in Cleveland tonight looking for a sweep of the Indians, and they got it, but they earned it. 9-8 the final. The Twins trailed 8-3 after 6 innings. They came back on a Tim Laudner 3-run homer. He's got 3 homers this year, all 3 against Indians pitching. Joe Carter hit his 9th in a losing cause.
Stay with us. We'll swing to the National League up next, where Lenny has added plenty of punch to the Phillies lineup, and the Cubs look to keep on winning on the road.
Peter Gammons will check his list and check it twice for his All-Stars. He will also take a look at the trade winners of the past week in Major League Baseball. It's all coming up right after this.
Besney Ford's used car sale is this Saturday. It's the best in the area, and here's some reasons why. An 88 Festiva or 88 Escort with no money down for only $99 a month, or an 87 Escort or 8060 Isuzu pickup with no money down for only $116 a month. These are just a few of over 100 vehicles from which to choose this Saturday. Remember, the lowest prices and the best payments this Saturday at Besney Ford, and that's a fact.
Magical World of the Disney Channel this June on Heritage Cablevision. Catch the beat, get happy, Pete, as Donald Goofy and the gang go south of the border for Disney's animation festival, Saludos Amigos. If you're looking for miracles, catch this original production that magically captures the 1930s and the lives of 2 very different brothers. And catch the magic of 2 sisters, Loretta and Crystal, going home. June on the Disney Channel and Heritage Cablevision.
Speed, pitching, and just plain hustle has the Chicago Cubs riding a crest atop the NL East. In fact, they look like a team more suited to AstroTurf play rather than the grass at Wrigley Field. Rick Sutcliffe went for number 9 at Three Rivers against the Bucks tonight, and in the top of the third inning, a slumping Ryne Sandberg came into this game 0 for 16, but had an RBI double there scoring Sutcliffe. Sandberg 2 for 3. Same inning, Damon Berryhill, the base hit in the right. Glenn Wilson has some trouble getting it out of the glove. White Smith and Ryne Sandberg will score on the play. 3-0 Chicago. Top of the fourth, Domingo Ramos. Base hit into left center field. That'll plate Lloyd McClendon. Cubs up 4-0 in the same inning, trying for still more. Jerome Walton, base hit to right. Glenn Wilson throwing home. This time he gets it right. Nails Ramos by a mile. But the Cubs would have their way. Bottom 8, John Cangelosi line drive. Ramos spears it, throws it to McClendon for the double play, doubling off Ray Quinones. And, yeah, there's Popeye Zimmer. He loves it. Cubs win 8-zip. They have won a Major League leading 21 road games. Sutcliffe moved to 9-4.
Juan Samuel doesn't miss Philadelphia, but he is going to miss his former teammates when the Mets hook up with the Phils starting tomorrow night at Shea. Samuel is flying home to be with his wife after she gave birth to the couple's first child. Now, one of the players traded for Juan Samuel is already giving the fans in Philadelphia their fill of excitement. Lenny Dykstra, his nickname is Nails, and earlier today he hammered the Cardinals. It was a businessman special, and Dykstra meant business. Against Jose De Leon, Lenny's first Philadelphia home run. And Philadelphia led it 3-0. Fourth inning, another familiar face, a different face in a different uniform. John Kruk came over from the Padres, laces into Frank DePino's offering, made it 6-1. Chris Carpenter fared no better. Steve Jeltz, 2-run single, a 6-run fourth inning, made it 11-1. The newly acquired Dennis Cook on the mound came over in the Bedrosian deal. And getting Vince Coleman looking. Cook allows only 1 run, 3 hits, and 7 innings in his Philly debut as they go on to win it by the final of 11-2. Cook is the first Philly pitcher this year to retire the side in order through the first 6 innings. Speaking of Lenny Dykstra's numbers, what he's done since he changed uniforms and cities, his third start since the trade, he's 6 for 13, including 2 doubles and a home run. He also has scored 6 runs and has stolen a base. As if Pete Rose didn't have enough troubles, his team has dropped 4 in a row. Tonight in Atlanta against Tom Glavine, that's Barry Larkin, deep and not playable. His first home run since April 17th. The Reds led it 3-0. Scott Scudder on the mound looking for his first Major League victory, and he gets a victim. Dale Murphy going down swinging as the Reds win it by the final of 6-1. The loss only the second for Atlanta in its last 7 games.
Time now for this week's edition of Diamond Notes with Sports Illustrated's Peter Gammons. On the menu, the real lowdown on who the real all-star should be and who fared best with all the week's trading activity.
Any all-star ballot that doesn't have Ruben Sierra's name punched out should be automatically disqualified. Sure, it's a fans' exhibition, but when people vote for Jose Canseco or Mike Schmidt, they deny other fans the right to see great young players like Sierra or Cincinnati shortstop Barry Larkin. And there really aren't many tough choices this year. At second base in the American League, well, you go with Julio Franco over Lou Whitaker. And third base, well, you take Gary Gaetti's production over Wade Boggs. In the National League, the second base, with Ryne Sandberg over Robbie Thompson. And catcher, where you take Mike Scioscia's experience over Damon Berryhill. But the rest is pretty easy. In the American League, you've got an infield of Alvin Davis, Franco, Gaetti, and Cal Ripken, with Sierra, Bo Jackson, and Kirby Puckett in the outfield, and Mickey Mantle Tettleton behind the plate. In the National League, you've got an infield of Will Clark, Sandberg, Howard Johnson, and Larkin, with Kevin Mitchell, Tony Gwynn, Vaughn Hayes in the outfield, and Scioscia catching. Just think of it this way. If Reggie Jackson's name was still on the ballot, he'd still probably get more votes than Sierra. 3 races were definitely altered this week, with the biggest impact being Oakland getting Ricky Henderson. They didn't give up anything. They've got Jim Corsi and Matt Young to replace Eric Plunk and Greg Cadaret, and anyone would trade Louis Polonia for Ricky Henderson, even if they can't sign Henderson at the end of the year. The Giants are now the clear favorites in the National League West. They lead the league in runs, they've got outstanding starting pitching, All they lacked was a dominant closer, and Steve Bedrosian is one of the best. The Mets countered the Expos deal for Mark Langston by the acquisition of Juan Samuel. For more than a year, the Mets lineup has needed to be energized, and Samuel is tough and he's dynamic. But the big question with the Mets now is, why isn't their starting pitching as good as it used to be? Lee Thomas has turned over the Phillies with 8 trades in less than 8 months, and he still may be at it. He's trying to get Benito Santiago from the Padres. But with all the deals, he still hasn't filled holes with a third baseman, shortstop, right-handed bat, and catcher. So time will tell whether Thomas has reconstructed the Phillies or merely reshuffled them. This is Peter Gammons for SportsCenter.
For the past year, his injuries have been a burden. This weekend, Larry Legend laces them up, and Chris says she's ready to give them an earful at Wimbledon.
And could it be the end of an era for Terry Holland? His alma mater is calling, and he's apparently listening. Those stories and more when we come back.
Something terrible is happening to the Anderson house. Rain is seeping into the wood, and that can cause mildew, or worse. All stains start out protecting, but Cuprinol stain and wood preservative keeps water beading up and rolling off, twice as long as the other leading stain. Stain with Cuprinol, when it's wood against weather.
The 1990 Geo Prism is so well built, there are only 4 parts its bumper-to-bumper plus 3-year, 50,000-mile warranty doesn't cover. And those 4 parts come with their own warranty. Geo. And here's a special Geo Prism offer. 2.9% GMAC financing or $400 cash back. Plus, if Geo's your first new car, you can get $600 toward your down payment with GMAC financing at select Chevrolet dealers now.
It was a booster, not former Kentucky assistant Dwayne Casey, who quite probably placed that $1,000 into an Emory Express package mailed to the father of then recruit Chris Mills. That's according to attorney Joe Bill Campbell, who spoke out in Bowling Green. Casey has been barred from coaching by the NCAA for allegedly placing the money into that package. He is suing to clear his name. The Bowling Green Daily News reported today that Campbell would not name the booster, but described him as a close friend of former coach Eddie Sutton's, who was in the office when Casey left the unsealed package on March 30th, 1988. Campbell also claimed 2 media representatives saw the same booster around the office the day the story broke in April and confirmed that he was, quote, in a sweat. The employers of those media reps denied that claim. Campbell made the allegations at a Civic Club appearance in Bowling Green last night.
The most popular words at the University of Virginia today were no comment. The question was, is Terry Holland leaving to become the athletic director at Davidson College, which is his alma mater? According to the Richmond News, Terry Holland is ready to leave the Cavaliers, but the newspaper couldn't pinpoint when. One source says Holland will quit as basketball coach after this year. Another said a press conference is scheduled for Friday at Davidson. It could either be a very crowded press conference or a very quiet one. Eric?
She may have had to withdraw from the Eastbourne England warm-up tournament because of an ear infection, but nothing could keep 3-time champion Chris Evert away from her 18th Wimbledon appearance. She's apparently okay and will face American Peanut Harper at Wimbledon on Tuesday. To basketball now, Larry Bird, who played only 6 games for the Celtics last season, officially begins the long road back on Sunday. He'll test his recovering feet in an all-star contest at Market Square Arena. Bird, recovering from surgery to remove bone spurs in both heels, says he's worked hard at practice over the past few weeks, but needs real competition. How long his career lasts depends on how his feet respond.
I think that what I have to do is just go by the way I feel. They wanted me to come back during the playoffs if I could, and I was pretty close, and it's 2 months later. My ankle still aches at times and gives me problems, but it's not the same pain I had. It's not the stiffness. It's not the type of pain I had when I was trying to come back. So it's getting better, but there comes a time when you have to test it, and I think this is the perfect opportunity for me to test before I go back to rookie camp in July.
We're going to go a little bit longer on this edition of the Sports Center. When you're the sports show of record, I guess you can do those things. But AMA Supercross Racing will be joined a little bit later in the show, but we'll be back to wrap things up after this.
Who can could ask for anything more.
Ask him if it has a 5-speed transmission like Isuzu.
Does it have a 5-speed transmission? Well, I'm going to check on that.
Ask him if it has a bigger payload than Isuzu.
Ignore him?
Or better mileage.
Does it? Not exactly.
No! Ask him why it costs hundreds more than Isuzu.
Now you can save up to $1,000 on the Isuzu pickup during Isuzu's 75th birthday blowout.
Nature's light, giving life to sparkling streams, as only nature can, helps create the clean, fresh taste that makes Bud Light the one light that outshines them all.
It should come as no surprise that Jack Nicklaus is in contention after one round of the Canadian Open, and it probably won't come as any surprise to find his bear prints on the leaderboard after 4 rounds. He has finished runner-up in this event 7 times. He's on the leaderboard right now, but the man leading the charge is Gallagher at 8 under par, turned in a 64. Dave Gallagher is 2 shots ahead of Donnie Hammond.
One baseball update for you. Ricky Henderson's debut at Oakland being spoiled so far. In 13th inning, or in the 13th right now, Toronto has taken a 4-2 lead. McGriff, a 2-run homer in the top of the inning, put his team ahead.
ESPN's live coverage of the Pete Rose hearings will continue on Friday morning, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time from the Hamilton County Common Pleas Court. Charlie Steiner will provide live updates throughout the day. It's going to be interesting because John Dowd, the baseball investigator, will be cross-examined this time by Pete Rose's lawyers.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Sports Center. Thanks so much for being with us. Kerry Ross comes your way along with Chris Fowler at 2:30 a.m. Eastern. I'm Eric Clemons.
I'm Dan Patrick. Good night.